Prime Minister Mark Carney addressed the challenges Canada faces in responding to the U.S. tariffs proposed by President Donald Trump. During a press exchange, Carney emphasized the economic disparity between Canada and the U.S., stating, "There is a limit, full stop. There is a limit to matching these tariffs dollar for dollar, given the fact that our economy is a tenth of the size of the United States."
On April 2nd, President Trump is promising a much larger global tariff regime, including bringing back in the threatened 25% across the board tariffs on Canada. And you've talked about the need for retaliatory tariffs at a dollar for dollar level. One assumes the punch coming is going to be much greater. How much more are you prepared? How much more are you prepared to go in terms of the monetary hit back, and how much do you think Canada can absorb?
This is an important question. It's a very important question. There is a limit, given the relative size of our economies, the extent to which we should match U.S. tariffs. Right now, what the government has proposed, and with the 150 billion odd identified products, are products that have, as I said earlier, maximum impact in the United States and limited, but not zero. It's limited impact in Canada that we can affect. And my government's commitment is that we will use all of the revenues from those tariffs to support Canadian workers that are affected by the U.S. trade actions. Pierre Poilievre's commitment, as his commitment is anytime anything changes, is he's going to use it to cut taxes. So if you aren't paying any taxes because you don't have a job, you're out of luck. Okay, we're going to go help those who are affected by it, as we should, as Canadians want us to, in my view. Now, so just to summarize on your question, there are limits. Now we'll see what happens April 2nd. We'll see what happens after that. We are not going to take an action that we think is not ultimately going to influence the United States, and certainly not one that is outright harmful to Canada, given the overall approach. So this will be very deliberate, and there is a limit. Full stop. There is a limit to matching these tariffs dollar for dollar, given the fact that our economy is a tenth the size of the United States. Thank you.
Carney reaffirmed his government's commitment to a calculated response, ensuring that retaliatory measures would create a maximum impact on the U.S. while having a limited impact on Canada. He also pledged to allocate all revenues from tariffs to support affected Canadian workers. In contrast, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has proposed using tariff revenues to fund tax cuts. Carney took a jab at Poilievre's approach, stating, "Here Poilievre's commitment, as his commitment is anytime anything changes, is he's going to use it to cut taxes. So if you aren't paying any taxes, you don't have a job, you have a lot. Okay. We're going to go help those who are affected by it, as we should, as Canadians want us to, in my view." The debate over Canada's trade policy comes as Trump prepares to implement a 25% across-the-board tariff increase on Canadian exports. While some conservative voices advocate for a more aggressive retaliation, others commend Carney's measured strategy, which prioritizes stability and worker protection over direct economic confrontation. Additionally, Ontario Premier Doug Ford briefly proposed a 25% export tax on electricity sent to U.S. states like Minnesota, New York, and Michigan, but quickly retracted the plan after Trump threatened to double tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum. This incident underscores the challenges Canadian leaders face in balancing economic defense with diplomatic restraint. Beyond immediate tariffs, Carney's administration is actively strengthening alliances with European nations to counterbalance U.S. trade pressures. His recent visits to France and the UK focused on bolstering economic and security partnerships, reflecting Canada's strategy to diversify trade relationships and reduce reliance on the U.S. market. While Carney's approach is seen as pragmatic by some, others criticize it as a lack of assertiveness against American economic aggression. However, his response highlights the complexities of international trade negotiations, where economic realism and national interest must be carefully weighed. Prime Minister Carney's response to U.S. tariffs shows a careful balance, recognizing our economic limits and protecting Canadian workers while seeking new alliances, an economic analyst commented. The coming weeks will reveal whether Carney's strategy will shield Canada from the potential economic fallout or if further measures will be required to safeguard national interests.